Let's bring in Sir Geoffrey Nice. He was the lead prosecutor at Slobodan Milosevic's trial. He joins me now for more from the UK. Sir, thanks so much for your time for TRT World. Did the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia fulfill its role?
No, I don't think it did. Many of its cases were satisfactory, some were very unsatisfactory, and one of the underlying problems that certainly affected the Milosevic case and possibly other cases is that where major political interests were at stake, then justice, whatever that means, could be set aside. I noted your president's observations about the concerns for Muslims generally, and it's probably important to have in mind, looking at what happened in respect of justice for Srebrenica, is that the reality was the West did not want a Muslim state in the heart of Europe. And much of the tragedy, misfortune's a completely inappropriate word, the tragedy that beset Srebrenica may be traced to that. Because evidence about what was actually happening in the background never emerged. It was not realized that there was a very clear plan to let Srebrenica go. It was never acknowledged in a way that was usable in evidence that Mladic was given the green light on behalf of the European negotiators to take, or possibly the European and the American negotiators, to take Srebrenica. It was not acknowledged, and indeed the evidence has only come out recently that what happened was done with the West fully recognizing that there was going to be a humanitarian catastrophe that can be, a humanitarian nightmare. That's revealed in State Department documents from America. And I discovered, to my alarm, that the great powers were stopping my producing evidence, the best possible evidence that would have shown the role of Serbia, and in particular of Milosevic in the Srebrenica activity immediately at and after this day, the 11th of July, 1995. So, yes, in part, it did justice. Where really big issues concerned, no, it didn't.
Former president of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milosevic, died during his trial. You mentioned this briefly, but I do want to focus on this one more time. Did this rob us of knowing exactly what was Serbia's role in the Srebrenica genocide and the war in Bosnia in general?
No, because the evidence that existed by the time of his death is available. In other words, there's a mass of it, so it's hard to get at. It's been written about in books, in particular by a book by Dr. Nevenka Tromp called The Unfinished Trial. So you can get at that evidence. The more evidence is emerging over time, and indeed I'm still hopeful that the British archives, which have to open after 20 years, although no doubt all the embarrassing stuff will be blacked out, they will reveal more as well. Yes, it's possible that the truth will emerge, but there are great forces at work to stop it emerging. And those forces can be found both in Belgrade, which suppresses documents, keeps documents away, as it did from me when I was the prosecutor, and as a result of what the West does in suppressing its documents, because it never really wanted the truth to emerge of how much it was aware of or arguably complicit in the taking of Srebrenica. The only way that a proper truth will be laid will be if all efforts, journalistic, legal, NGOs, everybody, are put together and not applied separately. And what really has to be borne in mind is that these unhappy victims, 25 years after, I'm referring to the survivors, many survivors per person, so it's not 8,000 victims now, it's 100,000 victims. Having to see their loved ones, or parts of their loved ones in reality, probably in those coffins, laid to rest without knowing who was actually responsible for this terrible event being allowed to happen.
And now, 25 years later, sir, we are hearing, Bosnian Serb leaders and Serb leaders once again denying that genocide even took place despite the international court verdicts. When will we see them being punished for this? And when will we finally have both sides in Bosnia on the same page? When can we expect this to happen? And what can the international community do?
As to whether people get punished, I really don't know, and I can't be very optimistic. It's worth just bearing in mind that there was a very famous film of a group called the Scorpions killing people. 6 young men and boys from Srebrenica in horrible circumstances south of Sarajevo. That film emerged within the trial of Milosevic. It was played publicly. Suddenly the Serb people realized Srebrenica was a truth, not a fiction. But do you know what? When that video was capable of being used, my efforts to conduct a full investigation taking to the top of Serbia were blocked. And within Serbia, although the people shown on that film had to be investigated and prosecuted, going up to the leader of the group, Slobodan Milosevic, for some reason, there was no evidence going to show who was actually responsible above them. And you have to ask yourself, what forces can there be at work that are able to stop proper investigations that would have shown more of the truth? One of the great tragedies, if I can add this sentence, is that the processes, and all of them, which are which should have as their focus the victims, take a ludicrously long amount of time. 25 years and we still don't know the truth. Why not? And the reason is because all states, from Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, and maybe even Montenegro, don't immediately open their cupboards, their drawers, and say, here is all the documents. The UN doesn't go in and say, OK, the conflict's over, hand over all your documents right now. Oh, no. They allow them to be kept private or dragged out by force of law courts over a long, long period of time. Why do they do that? Why? Because big international players, the big countries, always want to be able to keep documents secret for their own reasons.
Sir Geoffrey Nice, thanks so much for your time and your insight for us here on TRT World.